It was close to midnight at the Black Moon Diner, a small rock-themed restaurant on the corner of Sunset Boulevard. Neon lights buzzed softly above the windows, casting purple and blue reflections across chrome tables. The place was alive, not loud, not chaotic, just the perfect kind of late-night energy. Couples talked quietly, friends laughed over milkshakes, and classic rock hummed from the speakers. Behind the counter, Lena, a young waitress with a bright smile, balanced plates with practiced ease. She was polite, patient, and one of those people everyone liked instantly. But tonight, she wasn't smiling. At table 7 sat a man already drunk beyond reason. His name didn't matter. What mattered was the way he slurred his words and slammed his fists onto the table every few minutes. He had complained about everything: the food, the service, even the music. Lena handled him with softness, hoping to avoid trouble. "Sir, I can get you something else if you didn't like the order," she offered gently. He cut her off with a harsh laugh. "You think I asked for your opinion?" he snapped, loud enough that nearby families turned their heads. Lena swallowed her frustration. Across the diner, sitting alone at the counter with a cup of black coffee, was a man no one had noticed yet. Dressed in a long black coat, round glasses hiding his eyes, he looked like just another night owl. But the customers who glanced his way did a double. Those who recognized him kept quiet out of respect. It was Ozzy Osbourne, quietly minding his business, enjoying a peaceful meal without attention. Meanwhile, the drunk man grew more aggressive. He stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. Lena stepped back, startled. Before anyone could react, he lunged forward and kicked her in the face, sending her crashing into a booth. Gasps filled the room. Someone screamed. A glass shattered. The drunk man laughed, proud, victorious, feeding off the fear around him. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that Ozzy Osbourne was sitting right behind him, watching everything, and he had just crossed a line he would soon regret. The diner fell into a stunned, breathless silence. The waitress stumbled back, clutching her face where the man's boot had struck her. A couple near the window gasped. Someone dropped their fork. The jukebox kept playing softly in the background, but the music suddenly felt distant, like it didn't belong in the same world as the violence that just happened. The drunk man, red-faced and wobbling, didn't seem to care at all about what he'd done. He smirked. Actually smirked. "That's what you get for messing with me," he slurred, pointing an unsteady finger at the waitress. "Next time you listen when I talk." The staff froze. A young busboy stepped forward instinctively, but another waitress grabbed his arm, whispering urgently, "No, don't. He's dangerous." Customers began pulling out their phones, some recording, others dialing for help. A woman near the entrance whispered, "Should I call the police?" But fear held people back. They weren't sure if stepping in would make things worse. The injured waitress tried to stand tall. Her cheek was already turning red. "Sir, please leave," she said, voice trembling but brave. The drunk man laughed bitterly. "You don't tell me what to do." That was when a quiet shift happened in the room. At the long chrome counter, a man in a black coat and silver jewelry slowly placed his coffee mug down. He had been invisible until now, hidden in plain sight in the dim lights of the diner. But the moment he turned his head, a couple of customers recognized him. Ozzy Osbourne. But Ozzy didn't speak yet. He just looked at the drunk man. His dark eyes narrowed slightly behind his tinted glasses. Not angry, not shocked, just deeply disappointed, like he'd seen this kind of cruelty 1,000 times before. Meanwhile, the drunk man kept ranting at the staff, completely oblivious to the legend standing behind him. "I'm a paying customer," he shouted, slamming his fist on an empty table. "You people should be grateful anyone even eats in this dump." A couple sitting in a booth a teenage girl whispered to her brother, phone in hand, "Keep recording. This is going crazy." Employees huddled together behind the counter, whispering frantically, "What do we do?" He kicked her. He literally kicked her. "He's out of control. Should we tell him Ozzy is here?" "No. Let Ozzy choose if he wants to get involved." But Ozzy already had. He slowly stood up from his stool, straightened his coat, and took one deliberate step forward, then another. He wasn't rushing. There was no dramatic flourish. He simply moved with calm, almost eerie steadiness, like someone who had no intention of fighting, but absolutely no intention of walking away either. Customers noticed. Phones turned toward him. A murmur spread across the room. "Oh my God. Is that Ozzy Osbourne? Dude, no way. That's really him. What is happening tonight?" The drunk man, hearing the whispers, turned around, but not enough to see Ozzy yet. He assumed people were reacting to him. "Yeah, that's right," he said proudly. "Keep watching. Maybe you'll learn something." But he had no idea the room wasn't watching him anymore. They were watching the quiet, controlled, legendary figure walking toward the chaos, not with fists, not with anger, but with a kind of presence that sucked the air out of the diner. As Ozzy moved closer, the atmosphere tightened. Everyone felt it. Something was about to happen. Something big. And the drunk man still had no idea who was standing behind him. The diner had fallen into an uneasy silence after the violent kick. The neon lights flickered against the chrome surfaces, casting sharp reflections across the room. The waitress, clutching her cheek, staggered back toward the counter, trying desperately to breathe through the pain. A few customers rushed to her side, whispering comfort. Someone handed her ice wrapped in a napkin. Her eyes were glassy, but she still tried to smile, whispering, I'm okay. But she wasn't, and everyone in the room knew it. Meanwhile, the drunk man, heavy boots, torn jacket, breath reeking of cheap alcohol, stood in the middle of the diner like he owned it. His chest puffed out, his hands balled into fists. He scanned the room with wild, unpredictable eyes. What are you looking at? He barked at a teenage boy recording him from the booth. The boy flinched but kept recording. His friend whispered, Bro, don't stop, this guy's insane. Two elderly women in the corner grabbed their purses and huddled together, clearly terrified. A father pulled his daughter closer, shielding her with one arm. The entire diner felt like a pressure cooker, and everyone knew it just needed one wrong move to explode. The manager, a nervous-looking man in his 30s, approached cautiously, his hands raised. Sir, please, calm down. You've already hurt one of my staff. We can work this out. Work what out? The drunk man roared, slamming a fist onto a table so hard the glasses rattled. She spilled water on me. She deserved it, a woman shouted back, unable to stay silent anymore. She didn't spill anything on you. You stumbled and dropped your own glass. The drunk man's head snapped in her direction. Say that again. Her husband stood immediately. Leave my wife alone. Oh yeah. The man smirked. What are you gonna do? You want some too? His voice echoed like thunder across the diner. That was the moment when Ozzy Osbourne, still seated at the counter behind all the chaos, slowly shifted in his seat. He hadn't said a word yet. He hadn't moved much at all. But his presence was becoming impossible to ignore. A few customers whispered, Is that really Ozzy? No way. What's he doing here? Dude, that is him. But they whispered only among themselves, careful not to draw attention. Ozzy remained quiet, observing the drunk man in the reflection of the chrome napkin holder in front of him. His dark glasses made it impossible to tell where he was looking, but his posture was different, now straighter, focused, ready. Meanwhile, the drunk man shoved a waiter who tried to step between him and the frightened couple. The waiter stumbled into a tray of drinks, which crashed to the floor in a wave of shattered glass. The man laughed, actually laughed. You people are pathetic, he shouted, turning in a slow circle as if claiming the room. I run this place now. Anyone got a problem? Come on, let's go. The tension was suffocating. Customers looked at the exit. Some whispered about calling the police. Others argued that calling might provoke him more. The waitress, still holding ice to her bruised cheek, whispered through trembling lips, Please, someone stop him. Ozzy heard that, and for the first time, he turned fully around on his stool. It was a small movement, but it altered the entire mood of the diner. The neon glow caught the edge of his sunglasses. His iconic silhouette became unmistakable. A few customers gasped quietly. Ozzy placed his hands on the counter, slowly pushing himself up to stand. He didn't rush. He didn't posture. He simply rose with the calm, commanding presence of someone who had lived 1,000 lives and survived them all. The drunk man was still yelling at the couple, completely unaware of what was happening behind him. Ozzy adjusted his jacket, took one small step forward, then another. Uh-oh, someone whispered. This guy has no idea who's behind him. But Ozzy didn't approach recklessly. He just watched the man pace, controlled like a seasoned musician waiting for the exact beat to enter the song, and the drunk man kept ramping up, shaking with anger. That's it, he yelled. Nobody leaves until I say so. He grabbed a chair and lifted it halfway, threatening to throw it. A group of teenagers screamed, ducking behind their booth. But then Ozzy took one more step forward. That was enough for a few people to gasp out loud. The drunk man paused, hearing the reaction. Slowly, he turned around, his eyes locked onto Ozzy Osbourne. The room held its breath. The tension had reached its breaking point, and in that moment, everyone felt the same thing. The storm was about to hit. The diner had gone from noisy and energetic to tense and pin-drop silent. Every pair of eyes bounced between two people, the violent drunk man pacing back and forth, and the mysterious older man who had slowly risen from his seat at the counter. Ozzy Osbourne, but so far, only a few people had noticed. A teenage boy named Lucas sat at a corner booth, fries untouched, phone in hand. He squinted at the man in the dark sunglasses, the long hair, the iconic stance. His mouth slowly fell open. No way, no freaking way, he whispered, leaning closer over the table. His friend Maya frowned. What? Lucas tapped her arm frantically. Maya, look, that's Ozzy Osbourne. Maya let out an involuntary gasp so loud that 3 nearby customers turned their heads. In seconds, whispers began rippling through the diner. With Ozzy Osbourne. Are you serious? That can't be him. No, that is him. People started peeking around menus, around soda glasses, around each other's shoulders. A man with a leather jacket froze mid-burger bite. A middle-aged woman clasped her hands over her mouth in disbelief. A group of college kids filming the incident suddenly switched their cameras toward the rock legend. The energy changed instantly. The staff behind the counter recognized him. Too. A young cook whispered to the head waitress, Oh my God, he's actually here. This is Ozzy, OZZY. but none of them dared approach him. This wasn't the time. Meanwhile, the drunk man, face red, chest puffed, words slurred, continued rambling loudly, completely unaware of the shift happening behind him. You people think you're better than me, huh? Little waitress thinks she can talk back. He swung his arms wildly as he shouted, nearly knocking over a ketchup bottle, and still, he had no clue that a global rock icon was standing directly behind him, watching, listening, silent as a storm ready to break. Ozzy remained calm, posture still, hands resting lightly at his sides. Even with sunglasses on, everyone could feel the intensity of his gaze burning straight into the man's back. A few customers began quietly recording him instead of the attacker. Dude, whispered a man in his 40s. Ozzy's about to do something. I can feel it. A woman beside him held her breath. Please let him say something, please. Another whisper flowed through the room. He's here. Liv, right in front of us. The drunk guy finally sensed something was off. The room had shifted. People weren't backing away from him anymore. They weren't looking at him with fear. They were looking behind him, confused. He frowned and turned slightly. Why are you all staring? The hell you looking at? His eyes traced the line of sight from the crowd and landed on Ozzy's boots. He blinked. Then his gaze traveled upward slowly, confused, irritated, until he saw the long coat. Then the chains, then the unmistakable face behind the glasses. He squinted like the lights were too bright. Who the hell are you supposed to be? He asked mockingly, still clueless. The diner gasped collectively. A group of bikers near the entrance who had been quietly watching the whole event burst out laughing. One of them shouted, "You idiot! That's Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness himself?" The drunk man froze. For the first time all night, he had nothing to say. His mouth opened but no sound came out. His swagger vanished. The bravado drained from his face like water down a sink. Ozzy tilted his head calmly, as if studying a child who had just thrown a tantrum in a grocery store. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't posture. He simply existed, and that alone shifted all the power in the room. Someone whispered, "It's over for this guy." The drunk man took a shaky half-step back, suddenly aware of the dozens of phones recording, the eyes judging him, and the icon standing inches away. Ozzy slowly removed his sunglasses. The entire diner inhaled sharply. The man whispered, "Oh." He finally understood, and it was too late. The diner had fallen into a strange, electric quiet, the kind of silence that vibrates before something huge happens. The drunk man, still red-faced and staggering, spun around at the voice that cut through the air like a blade. "Son, you don't treat people like that." Ozzy Osbourne stood there, not posing, not trying to be dramatic, just standing. But to everyone watching, it felt like a movie scene coming to life. The dim neon lights reflected off his round glasses. His long hair hung loosely over his shoulders. Even if someone didn't know his music, the aura around him was unmistakable. But the drunk man didn't recognize him. Not yet. He squinted. "Huh, who said that?" Ozzy took a calm step forward. Not aggressive, not intimidating, just steady, silent authority, the kind of presence that makes even loud places feel still. "I did," Ozzy said. The man looked him up and down, confused. "What are you supposed to be, old man? Some kind of Halloween costume?" A collective gasp rose from the diners. A woman covered her mouth. A guy at the counter whispered, "Oh no, he doesn't know." The waitress, still rubbing her cheek from the kick, tried to warn the man through trembling lips. "Sir, please, don't." But the drunk man lifted a hand dismissively. Nah, I want to hear what the grandpa rocker has to say." Ozzy didn't flinch. He just walked closer until he stood barely 3 feet from him. "You put your hands and your feet on someone who was just doing her job," Ozzy said softly, "and that makes you a coward." The word coward echoed, not loud, but heavy. The man blinked, swayed slightly, then puffed out his chest. "You think you're tough? You want some too?" Ozzy tilted his head, almost curious. "No, I don't need to hit you. The world's already watching." As if on cue, people in the diner slowly raised their phones higher. Little red recording dots glowed from every corner. The drunk man turned and saw dozens of eyes staring back at him, judgmental, disappointed, angry. He swallowed, suddenly less sure of himself. "Stop filming. All of you, stop." No one did. Ozzy kept talking, voice calm but firm. "These people work hard. They serve strangers every day. They put up with rude words, long hours, tired feet, and still, they smile." He glanced at the waitress, who looked at him like he was giving her back something she'd lost. "But you," Ozzy continued, staring right into the man's eyes, "you walk in here, treat them like furniture, and then hurt them when you don't get your way." The man tried to step toward Ozzy, but a few customers instinctively moved closer behind the singer, forming a subtle wall of support, not touching him, but clearly ready to back him. Ozzy didn't react. He didn't even blink. "You know what the real problem is?" Ozzy said quietly. "It's not your drinking. It's not your attitude. It's that no one ever taught you respect." The man's jaw tightened, and for a moment he looked ready to swing, until he saw the reflection in Ozzy's glasses. His own face twisted, ugly, pathetic, surrounded by a crowd filming him. "What are you, her dad or something?" he muttered weakly. Ozzy smirked. "No, I'm just someone who knows what it's like to be on the wrong side of life and someone who learned not to take it out on innocent people," the diners murmured, nodding. "And if you keep going the way you're going," Ozzy added, stepping closer, lowering his voice, "you're gonna wake up one day with nothing but regrets. I've seen that road too many times." The drunk man looked around, suddenly small in a room full of eyes. His fake confidence was leaking out of him. His shoulders slumped. What do you want?" he mumbled. Ozzy pointed at the waitress. "Start with apologizing to her." The man hesitated until the entire diner stared him down. He finally turned to the waitress, trembling. I'm sorry," he said, barely audible. Louder. Someone from the back said. He swallowed. "I'm sorry." The waitress nodded nervously, tears forming not from pain this time, but from relief. Ozzy took a deep breath and stepped back. "Good. Now sit down and wait for the police." The man's eyes widened. "Police? Who called?" But he didn't need to finish. The sirens outside answered for him. Ozzy returned to the counter, calm as ever, like he had simply finished a conversation about the weather. The diner erupted into quiet admiration. No shouting, no violence, just respect earned and a bully humbled. The drunk man's face shifted from rage to confusion to something close to fear. For the first time since the chaos began, he seemed unsure of himself. Ozzy Osbourne didn't move aggressively. He didn't raise a fist. He didn't yell. He simply looked at the man with a cold, steady stare that had more weight than any punch could deliver. The crowd watched in complete silence. "You think you can talk to me like that?" the drunk man sputtered, voice cracking. "Who do you think you are?" Ozzy slowly removed his sunglasses. Gasps exploded across the diner. "That's Ozzy Osbourne," someone shouted. "Oh my God," another whispered. "Dude, you messed up bad." The drunk man's confidence evaporated instantly. His mouth fell open, and he stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a bar stool. His bravado dissolved into panic. Ozzy stepped closer, speaking quietly, but everyone could hear the intensity in his tone. "You kicked a woman who was just doing her job," Ozzy said. "You hurt someone who showed you nothing but kindness." The man swallowed hard, trying to speak, but no words came out. "You don't scare me," Ozzy continued, "but I'll tell you this. Bullies don't last long in my world." The waitress, holding an ice pack to her cheek, watched with wide eyes. The staff gathered behind her, offering support. A pair of security guards from the restaurant arrived, alerted by the crowd's earlier shouting. They approached cautiously. Ozzy nodded toward the drunk man. "He's all yours." The man tried to step away, but one security guard caught his arm. "Sir, you need to come with us." Look, I didn't know," he stammered, his voice cracking under the pressure of 100 staring eyes and dozens of recording phones. But the excuses didn't matter anymore. "You assaulted an employee," the guard said firmly. "You're being detained until police arrive." The drunk man's face went pale. "Police?" "Yeah," the guard replied. "Police?" The crowd broke into applause, loud, echoing, cathartic. Some people even whistled. Others shouted, "Justice! Get him out. That's what you get for hitting a woman." The guards escorted the man toward the exit. He didn't fight. He couldn't. All the arrogance he had earlier was gone. Ozzy walked over to the waitress. His expression softened instantly. "You all right, love?" he asked gently. She nodded, though tears gathered in her eyes. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Ozzy placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Don't thank me," he said. "You didn't deserve what happened." Not for 1 second. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and placed a thick stack of bills on the counter beside her. "For your trouble," he said, "and for the kind of day no worker should ever have." The waitress shook her head. "Mr. Osbourne, that's too much." "No such thing," Ozzy replied with a wink. "You earned it by staying strong." The diner erupted into another round of applause, louder this time. Filled with gratitude and admiration, Ozzy gave the waitress a warm smile, placed his sunglasses back on, and headed toward the door. As he walked out, customers cleared a path for him, as if a king were passing. Outside, the night air was cool. Ozzy took a deep breath, then disappeared into the darkness with the quiet confidence of a man who didn't need fame to be respected. Only character. The videos hit the internet before Ozzy Osbourne even made it back to his car. Someone had uploaded the first clip with the caption, "When you kick a waitress, but Ozzy Osbourne is sitting behind you." Within minutes, it exploded. Within an hour, it was everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Millions of people watched in disbelief as the drunk man's violent kick was followed by the slow, iconic turn of Ozzy Osbourne, rising from his counter stool, like a storm forming on the horizon. The internet had a field day. Reaction videos appeared instantly. "Bro really kicked a waitress in front of the Prince of Darkness." Ozzy didn't even need to fight. His presence alone humbled that dude. "That waitress deserves all the love." People in the comments posted laughing emojis, angry emojis, and paragraphs demanding justice for the injured waitress. Some wrote essays about the dignity of service workers. Others simply typed one word, respect. Clips began circulating from every angle. In one video, you could clearly hear the diner cheering when Ozzy stood up. In another, you could see the exact moment the drunk man realized who he had been threatening, his face draining of color, as if his soul had tried to escape his body. News outlets picked up the story within hours. Ozzy Osbourne breaks up assault in local diner. Rock legend stands up for waitress. Kick backfires. Man attacks server, finds himself face-to-face with rock royalty. TV hosts replayed the footage with dramatic commentary. Radio shows discussed it. Podcasters broke down every frame of OZZY'S commanding stance. The biggest surprise? Ozzy didn't give a single interview. He stayed silent, refusing to make the moment about himself. But that only made the internet love him more. Meanwhile, the waitress, her name was Lena, became an overnight celebrity. People flooded her social media with support. The diner she worked at became a tourist attraction. Customers lined up outside, hoping to sit at the same counter where Ozzy had been. When reporters asked her what happened, she always said the same thing. Ozzy didn't save me because he's famous. He saved me because he's good. The drunk man, however, didn't enjoy the spotlight. He was arrested that same night. The video became evidence against him. His face became an internet meme labeled instant regret. Justice, in every sense, was served. But the moment that truly touched hearts came. 24 hours later, the diner posted a photo on their Instagram. Ozzy Osbourne, returning quietly with no cameras, no crowd, no attention, just him, holding a bouquet of flowers and a gift envelope for Lena. The caption read, "A legend in music. A legend in kindness." That picture did more than go viral. It became a symbol of looking out for the people who take care of us every day. A symbol of standing up against cruelty. A symbol of using power not to dominate, but to protect. And as the story reached millions, one message kept appearing in every comment section, every share, every repost. If you believe everyone from waitresses to workers to everyday people deserves respect, type respect in the comments. And thousands did, millions did, because sometimes it only takes one moment, one legend, and one act of courage to remind the world what respect truly looks like.